Good evening. I'd like to call the January 7th, 2025 special called meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Education to order. We have an agenda before the members. Is there a motion to adopt?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the agenda? All in favor? This is the part where you vote, Dorian. Unanimous.
I was reading it first.
You should read before you arrive, sir. I know it's your first meeting, but we'll have to get you up to speed. All right. If you're able, let's stand for a moment of silent reflection and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please sit. Well, welcome to the meeting. It's been an eventful evening, but we do have a relatively short agenda. We're going to begin with a couple of action items that will queue us up for this next year of business. The first item on the list under action items is the establishment of the board officers, liaisons, and strategic focus areas. Mr. Young.
Okay, well, this is a great question here. For the board officers, do you want to, does anyone want to place anyone in nomination for that? I think the process is we would have to nominate and then vote as a board.
Yeah, definitely. So
So we need a nomination, a second, and then we can have a discussion and then open it up for any more nominations. And if none, then we'll vote on the one that's there.
we will,
So let's start with board chair if we could. Do we have a nomination for that?
so I will make a nomination for Mr. Mike Valdez to serve as the board chair for 2025.
I'll second that.
Oh, thank God. That's close. He thought about it.
So you could say. all
Any
in favor?
discussion on the nomination? No?
Okay.
So we'll take the vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Next up is the board vice chair. I will go ahead and nominate Mr. Wes McCall for board vice chair.
I second that
Oh, good.
motion.
Any discussion on the vice chair nomination? No? All in favor? Unanimous. All right. So next up, we'll establish the board liaisons. These are just topics or areas of interest that certain board members will focus on. So you're going to read them?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
So for myself, Mike Valdez, I'm listed as Forward Forsyth Liaison, which is a steering committee by the Chamber of Commerce. The Legislative Liaison, which interfaces with our elected officials in the county and at the state level. Mr. McCall is listed as the Homeless Youth Council Liaison. Mr. Grimes is listed as the Youth Drug Council Liaison. Mrs. Hoyes is listed as the GSBA Delegate and the Student Attendance Council Liaison. And Mr. Usherwood is listed as the Chamber of Commerce Liaison. Is there a motion to accept these appointments?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. All right, and then something new. I don't know, Mitch, if you want to cover this one.
Yeah, we're halfway through our strategic plan that started in 2022 and wraps up in 2027. So we're literally at the exact halfway point of that. One of the things we've been doing with that strategic plan is going into the community and meeting with local school councils. We've got the superintendent's advisory committee that we rebranded, and that's now our all those are strategic focus advisories so that we can hear student voice, teacher voice, and community parent voice. But we felt like, particularly with such a new board coming in, new superintendent, I mean, we virtually have it's a brand new governance team, really. And so we as a district staff felt like it would be really important to have in-depth discussions with everybody of the various, we've got 5 strategic focus areas, which our retreat we're going to go more in depth with. And so we felt like it'd be really good if a couple of board members had a couple of strategic focus areas that they could go a little bit more one-on-one time with some of our district leaders to learn really the context of that strategic objective, or objectives, I should say. So, everybody understands that we were all part of the community that put this plan together. But I think sometimes working, spending some time with the folks that are bringing that to life and going into the action items that would take place, or the action plans that would take place from each strategic objective, we just felt like it'd be really good for you to know a little bit more in depth about each of those. So from time to time, we're just gonna connect with you, or from time to time, you connect with us, and we'll go into the details of what that looks like at the retreat. But really just wanted to give everybody a couple of focuses, a couple of foci, is that right?
Foci.
A couple of foci, in which that you can get a little bit more depth of knowledge in that particular area. So and I don't believe these require any voting, because there's not a committee, it's not a group, it's nothing formalized, but just a couple of areas for everybody to really get to know the work. So for Mr. Valdez, and of course, we've talked individually about all these, but just for public's sake, I think operational excellence goes right hand in hand with being the chair, but another area of our strategic plan is the learner experience. Mr. McCall, again, as vice chair, operational excellence, your year's experience here, I think that's invaluable to have you, giving your thoughts and sharing what you learn about that with the team. And in social emotional health area, and when we say social emotional health, that includes safety. Okay, that's social emotional health, safety. It just means we're going beyond just physical, but all the different components that we look at for healthy students and staff. Chris, we talked about culture, climate, community focus area, as well as social emotional health. And your background in safety, that we felt like that second one would be right up your alley. Tricia, our former teacher in the group, the learner experience, we thought would be a great focus area. We had great conversations about that. And staff recruiting and development is another area that your insights and experiences could lend a lot to that conversation. And Dorian, climate, culture, community focus. You and I have had great conversations with Michelle Dugan, and the two of you have, but that community engagement piece is just so important. And having you look into that area with us would be great, as well as staff recruitment and development. So that's what we sort of had hashed around. Again, it's very informal. I don't want to over formalize it, but at least to get started with this first 6 months or so out of the gate as we get going, and then after that we'll make adjustments as we go along.
And I think just for the benefit of the public, add a little bit of color. These focus areas are really the purposes, since we do have 3 new members coming in, is to create an informal platform. By design, we haven't, developed meeting dates or any kind of rigid structure. We're going to kind of let this unfold on its own. But really, it's to create a point where us as members can connect with the various members of the cabinet and staff as needed on specific areas that align with the strategic plan. And the idea is that the 2 members that receive this information are going to relay that back to the rest of the board. And obviously, all of this is done in lockstep with Superintendent Young. So I think this is great. It's just another layer of engagement for us to understand the work that's being done. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. What we don't want to do is ever get to a big initiative, and the first time our board is hearing about it is weeks before a vote. It's just too important, and our folks they're proud of the work they're doing, so they want to share and make sure that you understand it as well. So those are just some things we're doing just to try to make sure that we're all working towards the same goal by the same means. So, yes, sir.
Any discussion? Anything anyone wants to add? Short joke or story? No? Tough crowd, man. All right, that will take us to action item B, which is to establish the 2025 legislative priorities.
Yep, and I will just say, I appreciate, sometimes you do things because that's how it's always been done. I appreciate, earlier this year, we were starting to put together our legislative priorities, and my conversations with Wes and Mike at the time, I thought they very rightfully so said, well, that may be how we've done in the past. Let's tap the brakes on that right now to make sure we get input from the ones that are going to be here, in January when the legislature kicks in. And thought that was great. There was nothing that required when we do this or even that we do it. We had a great meeting with our delegation in which our Board elect members were able to sit down and have breakfast with, had some great discussions. We had some initial things that we had talked about, kind of put everybody's ideas down there. We got some feedback from the delegation and knew that there were some things maybe that were so pie in the sky that, let's hold that off for now. But even those things that we thought were pie in the sky, we'll continue to go back to it. But I think what we're going to find this year's legislature is really going to be focused for obvious reasons on safety. And that certainly is always our number one priority. And so that fit in right with many things that we had. I'm not going to go through all the rationales for these, but Michelle Dugan will make sure that this is posted if you guys approve of what we have in front of you. And again, we try to align everything that we can to our strategic plan. And so operational excellence on our strategic plan, what we're asking our state government to continue to do is fully fund the quality-based education and capital outlay formulas. We're asking them to ensure that any legislative actions honor local autonomy, empowering school systems to meet the unique needs of students, staff, and community, with the understanding that the needs that we have in Forsyth County might be very different than the needs they have in Lowndes County. So to continue to give us that autonomy, and we appreciate that. And then we ask them to consider local tax exemptions and reassessment caps when calculating fair share for QBE. And that gets down in the weeds. I don't want to get into all that right now, but we do a great job with stewarding our taxpayers' dollars, and we don't want to be punished for being good stewards by taking in additional caps, if you will. Restraints may be a better term. Social emotional health and school safety. We're asking the legislature to please reduce student to professional ratios for school counselors to meet the nationally recommended ratio of 250 to 1 to reflect the increase in student support needs. We're asking them to provide state funding for school safety to support necessary updates to security, training, mental health support, and crisis prevention and response. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say how this really hits home right now and what's happened in the last 7 days in our county, in losing two of our students. We asked for barriers to be removed for sharing information about student behavior and criminal backgrounds and discipline records between schools and across communities. Certainly what brought that to a head was the tragedy in Barrow County. And we want to urge our legislators to try to remove some of the restraints that are on the sharing and flow of information. Student policy that strengthens, we ask them to support policy that strengthens legal requirements and enforces consequences for inaccurate reporting of discipline records during enrollment. You'll have families that enroll their children in our school system. Their records from their previous school in-state can take up to 10 days, sometimes longer, out-of-state even longer. So we have to rely on parents to be honest when they register their children about their backgrounds. We've got situations and cases where they haven't been honest about that, and there hasn't been any recourse legally, and so we've asked the legislators to look at that and strengthen that. Advocate for funding to support proactive and responsive programs such as the student advocacy specialists and school resource officers. We are blessed to have at least one SRO in every school. We are blessed, the thinking of the two gentlemen at the back of this room, Todd Sherrill and Steve Hahn, to have developed this student advocacy specialist program that has just been, you can't calculate the number of lives that have been saved by that. We're blessed by that, and yet what we're asking for is some funding to help us do those great programs. And truly statewide, every school system should have SROs. We truly believe that. Every school system should have SASs. So we've asked them to look at that. And then the last one, the learner experience, consider increasing funding for professional development and support to meet state mandated requirements, ensuring that the cost of effective implementation are fully covered and when new mandates are introduced. And the example of this is certainly the dyslexia and literacy legislation that was passed. Our teachers are spending maybe 25, 30 hours of training on that. It's a mandate, and we believe in the mandate, but there's no funding provided for the 30 hours worth of training that goes with that. So we would ask them to consider that. So that is what I propose to the board for approval, our legislative priorities for 2025.
To have a motion to approve the 2024, shouldn't this be 2025?
Yes, I just noticed that should be a 25 on there.
2025 legislative priorities.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, good. We need that. Any discussion? I'll start off on the discussion. For you guys, that's the first time you do it, and I know you guys have been involved, and also for the public. This is our moment where we, as a board, we ask our legislators, hey, can you please do these things for us? Because we don't have legislative authority as a Board of Education. We can't create any of the laws that we need to operate. So we have to go to the legislator to ask for these things. Funding is a big part of it, but it's not all about funding. If you look at, and I encourage the public to also look at this, because these can be conversations that the public could have with their own representatives. These priorities, contrary to perhaps other years, is, while sure, we're still asking for funding, they're very heavily focused on student safety, mental health, and the very real things that we're dealing with in public education and right here in this county. These are not just frivolous things that we're asking for. And if there was one thing, if I can, have one wish and have it, I'd like to see our SAS and SRO program go statewide and maybe even national. And we're definitely hitting our legislators hard for that. And it's on here, and we'll continue to drive that message home that the preventative work, the detection and prevention work is far more important than anything you're going to do after an incident has already started. So we'll keep beating the drum.
Yeah, I think the message is clear, is that we want our schools safe. We want our kids safe. We want our teachers safe. We want the community to be safe. And so these legislative priorities for 2025 align with, we just want to be safe.
Anyone else?
I think it really captures our intent, and and I think we all have had a chance to look at it and provide comments on it, and I think we come out of here and we're all on the same page. I think it's the most important thing.
All right. If there's nothing else, we'll vote. All in favor? Unanimous? All right. That is the end of our action items and puts us into executive session on the agenda. Do I have a motion to enter executive session for a tribunal appeal and personnel?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Grimes, second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. McCall. In favor? Unanimous? We will be going into executive session now, guys, so hold down the fort.